Hello, this is Eric Moran. We'll be narrating my lesson this evening on overcoming peer pressure. I had this really good PowerPoint presentation all laid out, ready to go, but my computer, of course, decided to croak. So, we're going to go without technology on this one, and we're just going to use some notes. And I apologize if there's some noise that comes around. I have 3 crazy cats who tend to get really anxious at nighttime, especially when I just get off work. Now, I had a video lined up to play, and it was from the movie Back to the Future 2. In this scene, Marty McFly is doing a video conference call with a guy he went to school with named Needles. And Needles is talking him into doing something kind of stupid and kind of bad. And it's obviously a very questionable decision at best. And the peer pressure finally gets to Marty as he's called a chicken. And Marty, nobody calls him chicken. So as Marty gave in to this, unknown to him, his boss was actually listening in on the conversation. And Marty becomes fired because of this. And peer pressure, there's many problems with peer pressure. It can be a positive thing, but most times it's a negative thing. It can affect a person by leading to a lifestyle of sin. I grew up in a small town, and we used to all cruise around town when I was younger, and when I got older to adult age, they all thought that we should be going bar hopping because I was the youngest one and I was now legal age, and so because of that, we all started going to the bars together, and that led me into a 2-year battle with alcohol. I became an alcoholic, and it really screwed up my life. It can also cause legal trouble. Fortunately, I didn't have that happen with me, but people who make choices like that, they can either fall into problems with alcohol, and they can get DUIs, DWIs. They could be talked into street racing, and then they could also have that happen and be injured in street racing, get tickets for racing, or even kids in school. They can have a problem with that, as they can peer pressure a kid to the point of hurting somebody, and then they have to go to court, or their parents have to go to court. And it can also lead to death and depression. Some of these kids, sometimes when you fall into these peer pressures, you become so addicted that it can lead to death. Either as a result of your decision, or you just become so depressed because you can't get out of it. I know whenever I was drinking so much, I was pretty miserable. And I'm really amazed that I did not die, as there were many nights when I was behind the wheel and I shouldn't have been. Fortunately, I never got into a wreck, never hurt anybody, and looking back, it was very stupid of me. It also can affect others. It can make others depressed. I think of kids in high school picking on each other. There's always that one kid who's different, and it's easier to join in on the picking for that kid than to stand up and defend that kid. Especially when everybody's doing it. It's the cool thing to pick on the kid, especially the new kid, it seems like. And I also think about this for teens, especially, and even adults. There's always somebody watching you. You may not even know it, but there's always somebody watching you who wants to be like you. And so I hope there was no kids who saw me, who looked up to me, saw me being stupid in my younger days, because I'd hate to think I possibly led them down a path of troublesome problems. These kids who get picked on, they'll sometimes kill themselves because they feel like there's nothing else they can do. They'll just get to the point they're so depressed and so beat down that they kill themselves. A lot of these school shootings that have happened in the last few years, even back to when I was in high school, were because of kids who were picked on. They felt like they did not belong, and they were just very miserable. They felt like they had nothing else they could do to get out of that situation. few solutions. Reach out to these kids who are being negatively pressured. You may be the only positive influence they'll see. And it only takes one person to stand up for somebody who is being in this position. I look at the woman who was about to be stoned. She was at the position of her life was probably about to end. She probably saw no way of getting out of it, and she probably thought this was her very last day. But Jesus replies to the men as they're questioning him about condemning her, and he says, "He who's without sin cast the first stone." And one by one, they all started leaving, and eventually it was just him and her. And he told her to go and sin no more. He reached out to her, and she was being beaten down completely. And he stood up to those who were the bullies. He stood up to them in the negative peer pressure. And I think also of another good example in the Bible of somebody who gave in to peer pressure but was restored is Simon Peter. Jesus told him that he would deny him 3 times, but Simon thought he would not do it. But when the moment came and the pressure was on, he gave in and said he did not know Jesus. And I think to me that's a great example of peer pressure, because he was amongst a bunch of people, and had he said he knew Jesus, he knew that it would be big trouble for him. He knew that he could be in the same position Jesus was in, and he was scared. So he said he did not know Jesus. But the more important thing here is this does not end this way. Peter is restored by Jesus. Jesus asked him 3 times if he loves him, and he completely restores Peter. So if you get into peer pressure, if you've negatively peer pressured somebody, it's not the end for you. You can always be restored. Just look at the story of Saul. He abused many Jewish people, many Christians, jailed Christians, and yet God still did amazing things through him. So the life of Peter and the life of Paul are good examples that overcoming peer pressure is a necessary thing to do. Giving into peer pressure isn't the end-all be-all. And Jesus shows you that you need to take a stand when things are wrong. Because it only takes one person to stand up and make a difference. Thank you, Dr. Owens. And thank you for this semester. I appreciate all your encouragement and all the leeway you've given me. God bless you.